Are comic book movies dying? It's a question that's been floating around for years, but it feels louder now than ever. Between disappointing box office returns, polarizing reviews, and growing chatter about superhero fatigue, it's easy to see why some people think the genre's best days are behind it. But is the problem really fatigue, or is it something deeper? Superhero fatigue isn't simply about seeing too many capes and power sets. It's about audiences feeling less urgency, less investment, and less emotional payoff from a genre that wants to find blockbuster storytelling. During the Infinity Saga, Marvel built a tightly connected universe in which every story mattered. Each film felt like a step forward to something greater. That formula worked. In the post-Endgame era, however, the output increased while the clarity and cohesion began to fade. A major reason the Infinity Saga resonated is that the films played like genuine events. They centered on icons: Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and Hulk, among others. Characters developed over multiple movies and decades of comics. Even non-fans knew the names, and that recognition gave each release real gravitas. Essentially, every installment linked meaningfully to a larger narrative, culminating in Avengers team-ups that felt earned rather than gimmicky, the natural payoff to years of character work. By comparison, many multiverse saga entries lack that built-in appeal. Instead of staying with heroes audiences had followed for years, Marvel leaned on second-tier or brand-new characters, often without establishing why viewers should care. The result is a slate that frequently feels like side quests rather than must-see chapters. There have been exceptions, but the overall sense of scale and urgency has diminished. The storytelling model shifted too. In the Infinity Saga, the films themselves contained what you needed to follow the arc. After Endgame, Disney Plus series were woven directly into continuity, often as essential viewing. For longtime fans, that added homework. For casual viewers, confusion. Walk into Captain America Brave New World without the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Sam's transition to Captain America lacks its emotional scaffolding. Skip WandaVision, and Wanda's turn in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness feels abrupt. Loki introduced the multiverse in the first Kang variant, foundational for Quantumania, but many didn't grasp the show's importance until after the fact. Miss Marvel funneled directly into the Marvels, leaving those unfamiliar with Kamala Khan at a disadvantage. And it wasn't only the requirement, it was the reception. Had these series delivered tighter plotting, stronger character arcs, and clearer stakes, word of mouth could have expanded the audience. Instead, the opposite often occurred. Secret Invasion and Shield became lightning rods for criticism, for plotting, tone, or their handling of certain characters. That negative buzz didn't merely ding those shows, it dampened enthusiasm for whatever came next. This is where the homework feeling takes hold. When a show fails to engage on its own merits, yet you're told you must watch it to keep up with the next film, anticipation turns into obligation. Multiply that sensation across several movies and series within a single phase, and apathy is the predictable result. So, what caused this lack of anticipation? In 2021, Marvel released films including Black Widow, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Venom Let There Be Carnage, and Eternals. Black Widow was never positioned as a massive hit, centered on a character slightly less marketable than Marvel's top-tier icons, and released as theaters were still recovering post-COVID. They faced a smaller audience pool and cooler critical reception than most Infinity Saga entries. Shang-Chi fared better with critics and audiences, yet topped out at 432 million globally. Marvel likely hoped for more, but limited mainstream character recognition, especially in a still uncertain marketplace, capped its breakout potential despite positive word of mouth. Venom Let There Be Carnage reached 500 million worldwide, respectable but not spectacular, and like many non-Spider-Man Sony projects, struggled with critical reception and frequently cited writing issues. Eternals made about 400 million while introducing concepts later referenced in Captain America Brave New World, but its obscure roster and mixed word of mouth drove it a steep second weekend drop, and the film never found traction without a strong built-in fan base. In 2022, the pattern largely continued. Morbius, a spin-off centered on a somewhat lesser-known Spider-Man villain, grossed only 167 million worldwide, with limited mass appeal and poor reception, and never generated momentum. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness neared 1 billion thanks to Strange's mainstream status, Avengers exposure, and multiversal marketing. Yet it also suffered a sharp second weekend drop, reflecting mixed audience sentiment. Essentially, fully understanding Wanda's arc required WandaVision, an example of the Disney Plus homework that put off some viewers. Thor: Love and Thunder posted a robust 760 million, but was hampered by tonal complaints and perceived writing weaknesses, leading to another large second weekend decline. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever performed well in the box office but wasn't as well received as the first film and saw a noticeable second weekend dip. The throughline for Doctor Strange 2, Thor 4, and Wakanda Forever is clear: big opening money, then mixed or negative word of mouth that undercut legs. Timing matters here. These films still benefit from being relatively close to Endgame, when goodwill and the novelty of seeing marquee characters again remained high. While they were financial successes, they arguably damaged the genre's momentum. Each of them fell short of the consistent quality standard set during the Infinity Saga. In today's climate, they likely wouldn't replicate those totals. Audience patience has thinned, and the must-see factor has faded after a run of uneven projects. Without the residual post-Endgame halo, weaker word of mouth would almost certainly translate into steeper drop-offs and lower overall grosses. While Wakanda Forever had added intrigue around how the franchise would handle T'Challa's absence, all three films fed a growing perception that even Marvel's most recognizable heroes weren't immune to uneven storytelling. In 2023, the warning signs intensified. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania grossed under 500 million worldwide, was poorly received, and posted one of the MCU's largest second weekend drops. Ant-Man's Avengers connection likely kept it from doing even worse, but the film reinforced the notion that Marvel's storytelling edge had dulled. The Marvels became the clearest example of the Disney Plus homework problem. The first Captain Marvel grossed $1 billion, largely as the marketed bridge between Infinity War and Endgame, this time pairing Carol with Monica Rambeau from WandaVision and Kamala Khan from Miss Marvel, which meant two of the three leads required show backstory. For casual viewers, that was a barrier. Lukewarm reception did the rest, resulting in one of Marvel's lowest grosses. In 2024, Sony's non-Spider-Man slate continued to stumble. Madam Web and Kraven the Hunter underperformed badly for two familiar reasons: characters without mainstream pull and weak audience reception. Venom 3 did better, just under 500 million, on the strength of Venom's profile, but poor word of mouth still limited its ceiling. In 2025, the mainstream appeal problem grew more obvious. Captain America: Brave New World was clearly positioned as a lead-in to Avengers: Doomsday, yet it carried the same homework burden. Fully grasping Sam's transition required the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. For casual audiences, seeing the Falcon as Captain America in marketing likely raised questions rather than excitement. Mixed word of mouth and a significant second weekend drop followed. Thunderbolts was better received by many who saw it, but with no truly mainstream leads, several introduced or developed primarily on Disney Plus, casual attachment was limited. Two consecutive films led by side characters capped the box office ceiling Marvel once took for granted. Fantastic Four: First Steps is the complicated case. The team is famous and anticipation was real, yet the film still experienced a steep second weekend drop, and while generally well received, didn't inspire the level of enthusiasm Marvel likely hoped for. Lingering disappointment from Doctor Strange 2, Thor 4, and even Wakanda Forever eroded trust. If Marvel could stumble with brand name heroes, audiences had reason to question whether the studio would get the Fantastic Four right. But then again, maybe this film just wasn't on the level of some of the top movies from the Infinity Saga. While the term fatigue implies general burnout, the data suggests that underwhelming releases, not exhaustion, are the real culprit. When Marvel delivers thoughtful, emotionally compelling stories, audiences still respond. Spider-Man: No Way Home holds a 97% Rotten Tomatoes audience score and earning almost $2 billion globally. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 earned over 845 million worldwide and holds a 94% Rotten Tomatoes audience score even after the somewhat lackluster movies that came before it. Deadpool and Wolverine surpassed 1.3 billion globally with a 96% audience score in the same climate. These films also had strong legs with no huge drop-offs, indicating strong word of mouth. In other words, when Marvel gets it right, interest is very much alive. A significant part of those successes, however, stems from character equity and event-level hype. Spider-Man: No Way Home had Spider-Man's universal appeal, the return of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and strong buzz propelled it into a must-see film. Guardians 3 benefited from years of investment across two prior films and the team's appearances in Infinity War and Endgame. These weren't side characters, they were fully realized leads audiences had followed for nearly a decade. Deadpool and Wolverine arrived as a cultural moment. Hugh Jackman's return as Wolverine, crossover potential, and the promise of multiversal cameos. Even for those who later felt the storytelling was uneven, the pre-release sense of "you can't miss this" combined with two non-obscure, proven draws made the film feel essential. The same pattern is evident in DC's recent output. Several films built around less popular characters struggled at the box office, a problem compounded by lukewarm or negative audience reception and the confusion created by announcing a reboot before some of these titles even released. Wonder Woman 1984, The Suicide Squad, Black Adam, Shazam: Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Blue Beetle, Aquaman, and The Lost Kingdom, and Joker 2 all fell short of the commercial heights the studio hoped for. In many cases, the core issue was limited mass appeal. Characters without broad recognition can succeed, but only when buoyed by strong word of mouth, and these films often failed to generate it. There were also cases where name recognition didn't save the day. Aquaman is among DC's most familiar properties, yet weak reception and the broader reboot debacle capped its potential. The Joker sequel followed a phenomenally successful first film, but embraced an experimental musical approach that alienated part of the audience. The Flash, despite featuring a flagship hero, was dragged down by controversy surrounding its lead, tonal inconsistency, and uneven execution. In each instance, brand familiarity wasn't enough to overcome middling or negative sentiment. By contrast, when DC paired bankable icons with coherent, resonant storytelling, results improved markedly. Matt Reeves' The Batman delivered a grounded, noir-inflected take that earned both critical acclaim and strong box office. The lesson is consistent across Marvel and DC. Recognizable heroes plus strong storytelling is a proven formula. Remove either, lead with lesser known characters without a compelling hook, or saddle even the biggest icons with a lackluster script, and the film is unlikely to meet blockbuster expectations. The same logic applies in reverse for some of the more recent releases that have been at least moderately well received. Films like Fantastic Four First Steps and DC's new Superman aren't universally hailed as flawless, but they've generally landed better with audiences than many of the outright flops that came before them. Even so, their box office runs are constrained by a weakened genre reputation, and in DC's case, fan war. Had either film arrived during the MCU's peak years or one of DC's stronger eras when enthusiasm was high and brand trust intact, the conversation around them would likely be a little different. That's the harsher reality of the current landscape. Even good or decent entries struggle in a market still recovering from years of uneven output. It isn't entirely fair. These movies are, by most measures, stronger than several recent disappointments, but audiences have become more cautious. In today's climate, good isn't enough. Film has to be exceptional to overcome that apathy and rebuild trust. And that standard is appropriate because the MCU reached its height on a foundation of mostly good to great films, not a run of poor to decent ones. If Superman and Fantastic Four had been released at the peak of their respective universes, they would almost certainly have performed better financially simply due to stronger brand momentum and broader genre popularity. That said, most films from that golden period were stronger than these two. Those earlier projects built the genre's momentum through better execution and more impactful storytelling. So while Superman and Fantastic Four likely would have earned more at the box office back then, their audience reception would probably be roughly the same, perhaps even slightly lower, because they aren't quite on the level of the very best from Marvel and DC's prime, and fans have been accustomed recently to mostly lower quality. Any boost would come from popularity and anticipation, not from a fundamentally improved perception of quality. Ultimately, it comes down to making genuinely great movies. At the height of the genre, mass appeal alone could fill seats, and quality reinforced that success through positive word of mouth. Now the baseline enthusiasm is gone, so quality matters even more. I don't think the superhero genre is dying because of fatigue. It's struggling because too many recent films simply haven't been up to par.